Okay, in this video, what we're going to look at, we'll look at a little bit more of the red blood cell itself, and much more specifically, we will look at the hemoglobin. Red blood cells basically are a sac. It's a plasma membrane. Okay, so think of a water balloon. Okay, the plasma membrane would be the balloon itself, and the balloon would hold water. Well, in this case, the balloon is holding hemoglobin. Okay, so that's what we're looking at for a red blood cell. So let me look at this a little bit better and describe what a red blood cell is. Red blood cell is a biconcave disc. It's very, very small. Don't have to worry about how small. Just say small. Okay, it's very small and it's biconcave, so it's going to look something like that. Okay. And this is going to be contained within a blood vessel. Okay, so this is going to be a blood vessel on here, and with the blood flowing in a specific direction. Okay, so this is going to be, again, biconcave disc, so it caves in on one side as well as on the other side. And the intention for that is it allows for more oxygen to be carried. Okay. Okay, so what we're looking at there is, let me just go through here what we're looking at. Okay, red blood cells, their lifespan is about 120 days, so lifespan is about 120 days. Now, if you can recall from erythropoiesis, which we talked about earlier, from the myeloid stem cell to the reticulocyte level takes about 5 days. And at the reticulocyte moves into your bloodstream, which still has some ribosomes, and it takes 1 or 2 days for those ribosomes to degenerate and become a mature erythrocyte or a mature red blood cell. And it stays within your body for approximately 120 days, at which time it gets recycled. And I think the next video, if I'm not mistaken, we'll talk about how red blood cells are recycled. So this is a red blood cell, and it's filled with a bunch of hemoglobin. So let me do this in a little bit of orange. Okay, so let me just do those. And those are hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, Hemoglobin. That's going to be hemoglobin. So let's look a little bit more on hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a protein that's pigmented red, although I did it in orange here. So, okay, but it's a red protein, and the hemoglobin molecule is what carries oxygen or carbon dioxide through the blood. Okay. Now we'll go into a little bit more specific on what makes up the hemoglobin. So let me scroll this page here and look at this part on this one. Okay, so what we're looking at here, this is a hemoglobin molecule, the whole picture on this one, and the hemoglobin molecule is actually 4 protein molecules together. Okay, you can see there's the 2 darker ones and then the 2 lighter colors on those. The 2 differences, there are going to be each one of those, okay, these are called globin. Those sections are globin. And there's 2 alpha chain globin and 2 beta chain. I'm not so concerned that you know alpha and beta and anything specifically on that. And at the center of the globin molecule, you can see like this little tiny Saturn looking thing on this one. The blue ring on this case, that is the heme portion, so hemoglobin. So the blue ring is the heme. The larger outer, the light or dark area, that's going to be the globin. So that's going to be hemoglobin. The red dot in the center is, let me change the color so we can actually see this. So the red dot is actually iron. Okay, so let me write that one out. So in case you haven't had chemistry, so that's Fe. Okay, but the iron is in the very center, and that is what oxygen binds with. So oxygen binds with the iron molecule itself. So if you can see, each hemoglobin molecule has 4 globin proteins, and each globin has a heme in the center, and each heme has an iron molecule on it, and that is what binds to the oxygen. So my question now, how many oxygen molecules can bind with each molecule of hemoglobin? You should come up with 4. So you have 1 oxygen here, so oxygen goes to this one, oxygen goes to this one, oxygen goes to this one, and it goes to that one. So each molecule of hemoglobin can accept 4 molecules of oxygen, and they're all weakly bound. Now, what we said earlier, when we're looking at this, there's a bunch of hemoglobin within the individual red blood cell. Let me move this over since it's probably underneath my picture. So each red blood cell has a lot of hemoglobin in it. In fact, each red blood cell has 200, and well, let me erase that one, make it a little bit nicer so we can actually read it. So it has 280 million molecules of hemoglobin. 280 million of hemoglobin. Each hemoglobin has 4 globin. So now the question is, each red blood cell can carry how many oxygen molecules? Well, this isn't math class, and I'm not good at math, so let me just do this basically here. So 1 hemoglobin can bind with 4 oxygen times 280 million. In other words, a lot. Okay, that's just a big number. So what we're looking at on that one. What else was I going to say with this? Where's my cursor? What was I going to do? Oh, let's talk about binding of the oxygen. Now, oxygen binds very weakly to hemoglobin, and they don't all bind simultaneously. Oxygen, let me erase some of this and redo this a little bit better. Okay. Let me get rid of those, just so it just doesn't get confusing like it already isn't. Okay, so each one of these, and I'm going to just arbitrarily start with, let's just do alpha globin 1 chain. Whether this is actually one that binds first or not, I don't know. But oxygen, so will bind with 1 first. And the first one that oxygen binds with it's the most difficult one to bind to, okay? When oxygen binds with the first hemoglobin or the first iron, it changes the shape of that molecule a little bit, which makes the second one a little easier. So I'm going to put hard. It's not hard because these are very weakly bound. Easier to bind. Let's do 3 up here, O2. That's still easier. And the fourth one would then bind easiest. You can tell that I'm an English major. Okay, so the first one is the hardest one for oxygen to bind, makes it easier for the second one. That changes the molecule shape a little bit, which makes the third one even easier, which makes the fourth one the easiest. Okay, and the reverse also applies. The first one that leaves changes the shape, which allows the second oxygen molecule to release. That's easier. And the third one, still easier. And then the fourth one to disassociate the oxygen will be the easiest one for it to remove. So that's kind of how this works. Now, we've seen that oxygen binds with the iron. What about carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide, let me just change the color on this one. So CO2 does not bind with, oh, the C with over, that's with iron. Okay, so carbon dioxide does not bind with iron, but binds with globin. Okay, oxygen, I'm going to go back in here, binds with iron. So oxygen binds with the iron molecule. Carbon dioxide binds with the globin, not the iron. That's always a trick question, so be aware of that one. Okay, and then obviously when oxygen binds, it carries the bloodstream carries it to the tissues. It leaves the blood, picks up the waste products or picks up the carbon dioxide from the cells that have used it, and then carries it back to the lungs, in which it then gets rid of this one. Okay, so that's going to be the basics of this, of hemoglobin. I think what I want you to know. Next one we're going to do is how to recycle red blood cells. So stay tuned.